what other forms of abuse do we have out there?
Now, I don't know if this is one, but I think it's one. So y'all can look it up and see if it is one. I think, and maybe is a subcategory of one of the other ones, but I would say religious abuse. And the reason I say that, like I said, I don't know that this is just my own thought process, is that I've seen situations where people use religion to manipulate and abuse those who are in that particular religion.
Man says in an abusive relationship, women should endure, and cheating is worse than physical abuse. So he said two things there. This was on the Whatever podcast. I think it's headlined by a woman named Melina. And so she had a panel, and I'm going to play that video, and we're going to dive into it. But before we do, I think it's very important to discuss abuse in general. There are different forms of abuse that I don't think people may be aware of. We just typically like to associate it with mental, and then also with physical, which is the bigger version of it. So let's just start there. Let's discuss different variations of abuse. I think that'll set the foundation. Our apologies if this is a sensitive topic for some, but I think it was good. I think these perspectives and how they looked at this is great for a discussion. So we're going to dive into it. So let's talk about the different forms of abuse. Different forms of abuse. Outside of the norm, physical and mental, what are some forms of abuse that you think exist?
Financial abuse is definitely one of them.
Why is that?
Well, because there are times where a partner or someone in the relationship might weaponize or hold over sort of like financial gain. So for an example, if you have one person making more money in the relationship, or they're trying to control how much access you have or what you could do and limit that from you in order to get you to comply in a particular type of way, that's a form of financial abuse. So I don't think it's just limited to just physical and the mental. I think, financial abuse is also another category as well.
Mm-hmm. Sexual abuse is another one as well.
Yeah, sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory for most. What other forms of abuse do we have out there?
Now, I don't know if this is one, but I think it's one. So y'all can look it up and see if it is one. I think, and maybe is a subcategory of one of the other ones, but I would say religious abuse. And the reason I say that, like I said, I don't know that this is just my own thought process, is that I've seen situations where people use religion to manipulate and abuse those who are in that particular religion. So like they might take certain scripture and use that as a form of controlling and things like that. So I don't know if that falls under like emotional, mental, or something like that, but I have definitely seen that, especially growing up in the church. I definitely have seen that be used as a weapon of control.
Yeah, I think I would probably put that under mental abuse, though.
Okay.
What other forms of abuse is out there?
I feel like knowing somebody is capable of being better and not constantly informing them of that, like whether it's in a relationship or whether you have a friend and that they can hit a certain marker and you don't let them know that they're better than that. I feel that that's a form of abuse, knowing somebody that can be better than what they're showing you.
Verbal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that that's another one.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think there's also another one where I'm not sure what you would put this under, but when one parent tries to utilize the children, withhold the children away from the other parent. I wouldn't. Maybe that's a type of child abuse that could be also put under psychological, more maybe mental abuse. But definitely withholding the child from being able to see the father or mother can definitely be used as a tool for abuse.
All right.
Yeah, I would say that's under mental abuse. Yeah, I would definitely say that's under mental abuse.
Shannon in the chat says it's all mental. Y'all are discussing the subcategories. I think that's what he meant to say.
I
Oh,
would
yeah.
agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, abuse in itself is the overall title, overarching title, and then we're kind of just breaking down what's underneath the umbrella of that.
So essentially, what there's like maybe 6 categories, all
6
in all,
subcategories
like
over
6
one general.
categories, and then there are like subcategories under those primary categories, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's how far it goes.
Okay. Is there anything that we left out? Anything that we might need to identify? I was hoping to hear more. I guess more from the men, because sometimes men experience abuse as well, and a lot of people may not be aware of what that abuse is. So
I feel like when it comes to men, we experience a lot of mental abuse. Oh, you're not a real man. You're not good enough. You're not strong enough. Things like that, kind of denouncing our strength. But I feel like that falls under a mental abuse. So it might just be a subcategory of that overarching title.
I think men also experience a lot of emotional abuse, but I think it goes unrecognized by men because society as a whole do not teach you guys to deal with your emotions in general. And so I think a lot of men do experience emotional abuse as well.
Right. We're taught to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Suck it up. You'll be all right.
okay. Anything else? Anything we left out before we move on? Anybody would like to add anything? Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the actual topic itself, where the man says, in an abusive relationship, women should endure, and cheating is worse than physical abuse. I'm going to go ahead and start playing this clip. We do have 2 parts of it. We are going to unpack it and unfold this and what was said. Here we go. Hit the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, shout out to the sponsor. Let's make sure we mute in between just to reduce any feedback.
Someone that's very, very young might be really religious and values marriage a lot and goes into a marriage and has kids when they're 18, 19, 20. And then a year into the relationship, it gets really, really abusive.
From who?
From both.
This is so rare.
Anyone
so
really.
Rare.
I mean, it happens.
Go on.
My point is, even though it might be rare from what you guys think,
it is.
If it would happen, what would you recommend for those people to do? Would they divorce, or do you want them to keep going in the relationship?
Keep going.
You can't divorce. I mean, that's not a real thing. You can separate. See, his Catholic background shines through. He knows. You can't divorce. You can separate, but you can't actually divorce. That's not a real thing.
Even though it might be physically abusive.
Because you got to endure. People are too.
You want to stick into the
People
relationship.
are just.
See, I mean, look,
people
I'm gonna be
nowadays
honest.
are just pussies. Everybody fucking quits. Everybody gives up. It's too hard. I'm this XYZ. This is why I'm special, so I can fuck up this entire situation based upon me being special. And the reality is, people just haven't learned to fucking endure. There have been hard times in relationship. I'm sure you guys had hard times in relationship. Any relationship has hard times, and it is what it is. You need to push through, and you need to endure because we're in this.
Abused?
Hold on, because we're in this situation now, where everybody's just creating this super nuanced 1% example of well, what if the kid's fucking transgender, black, and abused, and he's a Black Lives Matter supporter? Cool, okay, yeah. I get that one fucking minute
but I'm asking
situation.
For anyone that might be in that situation, what would you recommend?
Okay, endure.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what.
I don't.
That's. I'll tell you what.
Endure.
I'll tell you what I would do. Mm-hmm. If my daughter was in a relationship with a guy and she gets married to him and he starts abusing her a year into it, I'm gonna be showing up on their doorstep and teaching him some lessons.
Exactly.
That's what I would do. I also would not if I didn't have the capacity to do that for some reason, I don't know. I wouldn't want my daughter in that situation, quite frankly. And I understand the argument to endure because I have people close to me who grew up in abusive households and it lasted for periods of time and it was a phase and they endured through it and they ended up raising healthy, successful families too.
All right, that's the first clip. It says that when it comes to physical abuse, women should endure. I kind of want to tackle it from two angles. I want to speak on what he said. If you disagree, why not? Or if you agree. And then also want to speak just in general with abuse. Should anybody endure abuse within a marriage? Is there a limit? I know we identify different forms of abuse, but abuse is abuse. Is there levels to abuse? Or are you in the thought process of all abuse falls along the same line? Let's go ahead and break this down. What are you guys' thoughts? I'm going to go ahead and start with you first. Men are not the enemy.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Jane. My platform, as you see, is Men Are Not the Enemy. So first of all, I think it's interesting that they're all non-melanated. That's the first thing I've pointed out is, I don't know if this is statistically correct, but from what I've seen and what I talk about and what I've come across, I noticed first of all that non-melanated people are definitely more, they believe in enduring marriage, in my opinion, more so than us. I believe that non-melanated people will put up with a lot of things that we won't, that brown people won't do. I do love the fact that the one guy was talking about endurance. I believe that 1,000,000%. Now abuse. So to be 100% transparent, my father was abusive. I was raised by my dad as a single father until he met my stepmom. But my mom and my stepmom, he abused both women. But as the guy said, or as I think Lapeef mentioned, that sometimes the man changes and then the guy said that the man changes and then he ends up raising pretty decent kids. So I guess I'm that kid, because my dad, like I said, I saw my mother get abused, physically abused, emotional abuse, and spiritually, every type of abuse, and my stepmom. But now my stepmom has not, my dad is a changed man. And now I have a sister that she's like 15 or so, and she's never witnessed my dad abuse her mom. So yeah, I guess it can get better, but I will say that the everlasting effects, what I witnessed, how I felt when I've heard things happening in the household, it did affect me at that time. Luckily for me, I've never been physically abused by any man. So I would like to say that, first of all, a lot of people believe that, okay, if your father abused you, or if your boyfriend or your husband abused you, that more likely you're gonna be accustomed to a lot of abuse in the future aside from that person. And I'm the first to say that that's not true, because I've never been abused by any other man besides my dad. So to sum it all up, I think the one guy talking about endurance in the marriage, I think that was a valid point. But when it comes to abuse, I do think that there's limits. And I think those limits are custom to each person. I think each person has their own limit. And whatever that limit is, that's what that limit is.